I always thought life was straightforward. Work hard, love your family, keep your promises. But sometimes, a single moment can shake everything you thought was steady. This is my story. My name is Daniel. I'm 35, married to Sarah for 8 years, and we have 2 kids, Emma, 6, and Lucas, 3. We live in a modest suburban neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. Sarah is a kindergarten teacher, and I work as a project manager for a local construction company. We've built a life around routines, weekend park visits, dinners together, bedtime stories. It was simple and good, until the day I made a mistake. It wasn't a huge one, at least not on the surface. One afternoon, my company assigned me a new project manager to assist me. Her name was Lisa, bright, energetic, and, honestly, charming. She was younger than me, fresh out of college, and full of enthusiasm. I welcomed the help, but I didn't realize how much Lisa's presence would shift the balance at home. At first, it was just work, late nights answering emails, quick coffee breaks, and brainstorming sessions. Lisa was easy to talk to, and I appreciated having someone who understood the pressure of the job. But I started coming home later. I was tired, distracted. Sarah noticed, but I brushed it off. Then came the small, innocent text from Lisa. "Thanks for your help today," or "looking forward to tomorrow's meeting." Nothing alarming, just professional. But one evening, Sarah found my phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. Lisa's message popped up. "Can we talk after work? I need to clear the air." Sarah's face changed. She didn't say much, but I saw the hurt. That night, the air between us was thick. Sarah asked gently, "Is there something going on between you and Lisa?" I froze. The truth was, nothing had happened, at least not yet. But the seed of doubt had been planted. "I promise, nothing is going on," I said. "She's just a colleague." But Sarah wasn't convinced. She started pulling away, and the warmth in our home began to cool. It was the beginning of a struggle that would test everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and responsibility. The days after that conversation felt like walking on eggshells. Sarah's usual warmth was replaced by quiet distance. She stopped asking about my day, stopped sharing hers. Our dinner conversations became short and strained, like 2 strangers trying not to upset each other. At work, Lisa continued to be helpful, but I sensed a shift in our interactions too. She seemed more hesitant, less enthusiastic. I wondered if she knew about Sarah's suspicions. One Friday evening, I got home late again. The house was dark and quiet. Sarah was already in bed, her back turned to me. I sat on the edge and tried to talk, but the words caught in my throat. That weekend, I realized I needed to take action before this wedge between us became permanent. I turned off my phone after work and spent the whole Saturday with Sarah and the kids. No distractions, no work talk, just us. Sarah was cautious but appreciative. We went to the park, laughed at Lucas's silly jokes, and watched Emma's dance recital. Slowly, the walls between us started to crack. Still, I knew apologies weren't enough. I needed to rebuild her trust. So I decided to set boundaries at work. I told Lisa that while I valued her help, our relationship had to remain strictly professional. Lisa understood immediately, even smiled and said, "I'm glad you said that." I didn't want things to get complicated. That conversation gave me hope, but I also knew that rebuilding trust takes time, patience, and honesty. The next few weeks were hard. Sarah and I started couples counseling. We learned to talk openly about our feelings, fears, and insecurities. It wasn't easy to confront the cracks in our marriage, but it was necessary. One night, after a counseling session, Sarah looked at me and said, "I'm scared, Daniel. I don't want to lose what we have." I held her hands and whispered, "Neither do I. We'll get through this. Together." That moment was a turning point. It was the first time in weeks I felt a genuine connection, fragile but real. After that evening, Sarah and I began a slow but steady journey toward healing. It wasn't like flipping a switch. There were still moments of doubt and frustration, but the gap between us started to close. Counseling helped us uncover not only the fears sparked by Lisa, but also deeper issues we hadn't addressed before. We talked about how the stress of work and parenting had quietly piled up, leaving us emotionally distant. Sarah confessed she felt overwhelmed, like she was carrying everything alone. I admitted I hadn't been as present as I should have been, caught up in trying to prove myself at work. It was humbling, but necessary. One weekend, we decided to take a small trip, just the 4 of us, to the countryside. No phones, no distractions, just fresh air and long conversations. Emma and Lucas ran through fields of wildflowers. Sarah and I talked late into the night on the porch, watching stars. For the first time in months, we laughed together freely. Back home, I continued to set clear boundaries at work. I limited my after-hours emails and meetings and made sure Sarah knew she was my priority. It wasn't always easy, but the effort started to show. Lisa eventually left the company, taking a job in another city. While that was bittersweet, it removed the last complication in our professional lives. Most importantly, Sarah and I began rebuilding trust, not by grand gestures, but through daily honesty. We shared our days, our worries, even small annoyances. We made a habit of checking in emotionally. One evening, as I tucked Emma into bed, she said quietly, "Mommy and Daddy are happy again, right?" I smiled and nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. We're getting there." Sometimes, the smallest signs remind you of how far you've come. But the journey wasn't just about us. It was about being better parents, better partners, and better people. Life began to settle into a new rhythm, one that was more honest, more open, and surprisingly hopeful. The tension that once lingered in the corners of our home slowly faded, replaced by genuine moments of connection. Sarah and I made a pact to prioritize us time, no matter how busy life became. Every Thursday evening was reserved for a date night, sometimes simple, like ordering takeout and watching an old movie at home, other times going out to our favorite little Italian restaurant. Those evenings became our lifeline, a reminder of why we chose each other in the first place. Parenting, of course, remained challenging. Balancing work, school, and extracurricular activities kept us on our toes. But we learned to lean on each other more, sharing responsibilities and supporting one another instead of slipping back into old patterns of isolation. One Saturday morning, while making breakfast, Sarah looked over at me and said, "You know, I almost lost faith in us, but I'm glad we didn't." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I realized how close we had come to a breaking point, and how much effort it took to pull back from the edge. Our journey wasn't perfect. There were still disagreements and moments of doubt, but the difference was we faced them together. No more silence, no more guessing. Slowly, trust rebuilt its fragile bridge between us. The kids noticed the change too. Emma's laughter returned, and Lucas seemed happier, more at ease. Our home felt lighter. One afternoon, Emma brought home a drawing she'd made in school, a picture of our family holding hands under a shining sun. It was simple but full of meaning. Sarah and I looked at each other and smiled. Sometimes, that's all the reassurance you need. But just as things seemed to be settling, life threw us another curveball. It wasn't dramatic or earth-shattering. No betrayal or secrets this time. But sometimes the little things have a way of testing you just as much. Sarah received a promotion at work. It was a big deal for her, a recognition of years of dedication as a teacher. But with it came longer hours, more responsibility, and stress she hadn't expected. At first, I was proud and supportive. But as her workdays stretched late into the evening, I could see the exhaustion setting in. She started coming home tense and distracted, and I felt that familiar distance creeping back. One night, after putting the kids to bed, she admitted, "I don't know how to do this, Daniel. I want to be good at my job and still be here for you and the kids. But I'm failing." I could see the weight she carried, and it reminded me of how important it was to be her partner, not just in good times, but in the tough ones too. We talked late into the night, figuring out how to balance her new role without losing what mattered most. I promised to step up more around the house and with the kids. She promised to communicate openly when things felt overwhelming. It wasn't easy. We stumbled and made mistakes. But the commitment to face challenges together held us steady. Life isn't about perfection. It's about showing up again and again. With Sarah's promotion came new routines and fresh challenges. We had to juggle schedules, school events, and deadlines like never before. Sometimes it felt like we were barely keeping our heads above water. But there was also something beautiful about knowing we were in this together. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, I found Sarah sitting quietly on the porch, her eyes distant. I sat beside her and asked, "Do you want to talk about it?" She sighed. "I'm scared, Daniel. Scared I'm going to mess this up. Scared I'll let everyone down." I took her hand. "You're not alone. We'll figure it out, step by step. I believe in you." That moment reminded me of the power of simply being there. No solutions, no advice, just presence. Over time, we learned to celebrate small victories, a good day at work, a peaceful evening with the kids, even a quiet cup of coffee together before the chaos of the day began. We also learned the importance of self-care. Sarah started yoga classes, and I took up running. These small escapes helped us recharge and face life's pressures with more patience. Our relationship deepened not because the big problems disappeared, but because we grew stronger facing them side by side. And through it all, the kids thrived. Emma blossomed at school, and Lucas hit new milestones every week. Watching them grow was the greatest joy and the strongest motivation to keep building our life together. One quiet Sunday afternoon, as the sun filtered softly through the curtains, Sarah and I sat in the living room, reflecting on the past year. The challenges, the struggles, the moments of doubt, and the triumphs. "I never thought we'd make it through the way we did," Sarah said softly, leaning her head on my shoulder. I nodded. "Me neither. But it's made us stronger, more honest, more connected." Our journey had taught us that relationships aren't always easy or glamorous. Sometimes they're messy, complicated, and uncomfortable. But the willingness to keep trying, to forgive, and to grow, that's what mattered. We talked about our dreams for the future, family trips, new hobbies, maybe even starting a small business together someday. And as the kids played happily nearby, I realized that the life we were building wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was ours. That night, after tucking Emma and Lucas into bed, Sarah and I sat quietly, hands entwined. "Thank you for not giving up on us," she whispered. I smiled. "There's no one else I'd rather be with." And in that simple exchange, I found a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Life, as it often does, continued with its steady rhythm. Work, school, weekends, and all the little moments in between. But this time, Sarah and I had learned to lean on each other more, to communicate openly, and to face whatever came with shared strength. One evening, a few months later, Sarah surprised me with a small celebration at home. Our anniversary was coming up, but this time, there were no extravagant plans, just a simple dinner, candles, and a handwritten letter she gave me. In it, she wrote about the journey we had taken, the mistakes we made, and the love that survived it all. She thanked me for being patient, for forgiving, and for standing by her side. Reading her words, I felt overwhelmed, not with grand gestures or gifts, but with gratitude. Gratitude for second chances, for growth, and for the messy, beautiful reality of our life together. That night, as we sat together, I realized that love isn't just about passion or excitement. It's about commitment, forgiveness, and showing up, day after day, through all the highs and lows. Our story wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, and that made it all the more precious. With the foundation of trust slowly rebuilt, Sarah and I began to think about the future in a way we hadn't dared for a long time. We talked about long-term goals, saving for a family home, planning vacations, even considering expanding our family. But more than plans, we focused on everyday moments. Bedtime stories with Emma, coaching Lucas as he learned to ride his bike, quiet mornings sipping coffee together before the kids woke up. Our communication improved drastically. When conflicts arose, we learned to address them immediately instead of letting resentment build. Counseling sessions, though less frequent, remained a safe space to navigate difficult emotions. One day, Sarah shared a memory from her childhood, how her parents had separated when she was young and how she feared repeating that cycle. Hearing her vulnerability made me realize how much healing we both needed. It wasn't just about fixing what was broken, but about breaking patterns and creating something better for our kids. That understanding deepened our bond in ways I hadn't expected. We weren't perfect, and our story had its scars, but it was real, and that made all the difference. As the months turned into a year, Sarah and I found ourselves in a place we had once thought impossible. Not perfect, by any means, but steady and hopeful. We celebrated birthdays, school plays, and small victories, like Emma's first solo in the school choir and Lucas taking his first steps without falling. These moments, simple and pure, became the threads that wove us closer together. Our relationship evolved from one built on infatuation to one rooted in deep respect, understanding, and friendship. We learned that love is not just a feeling but a series of choices: to forgive, to listen, to be patient, and to grow. One quiet evening, as we sat together watching the sunset from our porch, Sarah reached for my hand. "Thank you for sticking with me," she said softly. I smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "Thank you for trusting me again." In that moment, surrounded by the life we had rebuilt, I realized that our story wasn't about the mistakes or the hardships we faced. It was about the strength to face them together, and the hope that no matter what happens, we could always find our way back to each other. Because in the end, that's what family is.